Hello, I'm Amanda Paisley, a MCE Math and Science major.
And I'm Melanie Heldman, an AYA Life Science and Chemistry Education major, and we did our practicum with Mauser Incorporated.
We were first introduced to Mauser by my aunt who works in the HR department. She knew the plant controller was looking for someone to do a cost assessment on the trailers the company uses and thought we would be a good fit.
Brian, the plant controller and our supervisor gave us each a stack of papers with a month's worth of data from the company, as shown in the second photo, stating that when we were done with that stack, there were multiple more. He then briefly explained the final product he wanted from us, which included a spreadsheet and an analysis of the data that we decided to enter.
The papers were invoices for each of the repairs and checkups done on the company's trailers. As shown in the photos, they range from simple installations to complicated full vehicle repairs. We initially decided on 6 points of data from each invoice to enter into the spreadsheet, predicting what would be helpful in the analysis of this data.
We initially focused on the trailer number, the date of the fix, the invoice number, the cost of the fix, description of the problem and reason for the fix, the parts needed for the fix. By the end of the practicum, we realized that the parts needed and the lengthy descriptions we entered were not necessarily needed, which would have saved us a lot of time while entering the large quantities of data.
As seen here, the orange highlighted section means that it is a higher cost, and the red highlighted section means that it is above $100 because Brian wanted us to look at the cost of the fixes as a main focus. So, after entering 3 months of data and noticing some trends and commonalities, we started our analysis. We sorted each of the transactions into one of the 5 recurring categories. This table is of our calculations from the category skybits, which are GPS units needed for the trailers. We calculated what percent of the total transactions were from skybits installations, as well as what percent of the total costs were those same installations.
We did these calculations for each of the 5 outstanding categories we noticed while entering data for the months March, April, and May, which were skybits, checkups with extra repairs found, Department of Transportation or DOT inspections, and DOT inspections with extra repairs found. We calculated all of these numbers by hand, doing multiple equations for 3 months of each of the 5 categories, which took almost half a day of work.
After presenting these findings and information to Brian, he told us that this is a new perspective than he had been presented with before. However, he also wanted the information organized per trailer. To point us in the right direction, he showed us how to use a pivot table in Excel. The pivot tables are a computer-run way to do the calculations that we mentioned on the prior slide, which would have saved us a decent amount of time if we had known about them sooner. However, thinking through our calculations and tables on our own, previous to using the automated pivot tables, gave us a more thorough understanding of the information we were presenting to Brian and what would be useful to his company.
We entered 2 more months of data, which concluded our data entry for February through June. After that, we completed pivot tables for all 5 months and presented those to Brian along with the small edits we'd made to the calculations. Brian ended up preferring the calculations we did by hand over the pivot tables because they presented a completely new point of view than the by trailer assessments that he usually sees.
So, our main takeaways from working in a business setting was that there is no correct or laid out way to get from point A to point B. We were given an end product without direct guidance on how to get there.
Other than that, we expanded our fluency in Excel and Google Drive, increased our ability to read illegible handwriting as shown in the photo, and broadened our vocabulary to include trailer and mechanical terms.
As students, we learned how much impact a small miscalculation or mistype can have on a set of data in all of its products. The importance of being precise and efficient at the same time was emphasized by the 20-hour minimum in our busy summer schedules, as shown in the picture.
As future teachers, we feel as though this practical experience sorting and analyzing data for a company will help us properly convey the importance of and display proper use of data in our classrooms.
So for our classroom impact, one of the Common Core standards for 7th grade math, as shown in this standard here, is to use random samplings to draw inferences about a population. So because of this practicum, I am able to better help my students grasp the concept of gathering and analyzing data. So to do this, I would create a lesson based on gathering and analyzing various sets of data. I would give the students a sheet of paper with several pieces of data on it. They would focus on how the data should be presented as a final product. In the end, the students would input the data into spreadsheets, similar to what we did in the practicum, and determine which data is needed and which would be considered irrelevant. I would assess them by having them create a scatter plot of the data. This would have them see if it has a correlation to what they were looking for.
When looking through the Ohio Learning Standards for Science, the part that I felt best applied to the work we did in this practicum was when the course description for both high school biology and chemistry states that, quote, each course should include inquiry-based laboratory experience that engages students in asking valid scientific questions and gathering and analyzing information, focusing on the gathering and analyzing information. In an intro to chemistry course in high school, it would be important to address the proper methods of data collection and analysis, because it will be the student's first time in a high-level chemistry lab. I could do a simple exercise creating a fake data table as if they just collected it in a lab. I would then have my students analyze it in small groups, putting together small, few-minute presentations showing trends or calculations they thought to be important. Comparing all the group's outcomes as a class would hopefully show a common trend of what works and point out common and easy mistakes that they should avoid in the future. I would assess how much the students learn from this activity through the first lab they turn in, which would likely be very shortly after this activity. Their labs will show how well they analyze their data and if they know how to properly use that information in their conclusion.
The end.
Thank you for listening.